Thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike Smithgall, the unelected mayor of Atheistville, and this is today's Mic Drop. September 4th, 2025, just a few days ago, Florida became the first state in American history to completely eliminate school vaccine mandates. Not loosen them, not add more exemptions, eliminate them entirely. At a press conference announcing this decision, Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo invoked religious language repeatedly, claiming that decisions about what goes into your body should be between you and God, and that vaccine mandates are fundamentally immoral. Now, this shouldn't be a religious issue at all. Vaccine policy is a matter of public health, scientific evidence, and community safety. But Dr. Ladapo's language makes it crystal clear that Florida is deliberately framing this as a matter of religious freedom. So let's watch a clip from that press conference, and then I'll tell you why this framing reveals something much deeper about how religion is being weaponized for political ends.
The Florida Department of Health, in partnership with the governor, is going to be working to end all vaccine mandates in Florida law. All of them. All of them. All of them. Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Who am I as a government or anyone else, or who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body? I don't have that right. Your body is a gift from God. What you put into your body is because of your relationship with your body and your God. I don't have that right. Government does not have that right. You don't want to put whatever vaccines in your body? God bless you. And I hope you make an informed decision. And that's how it should be. That is a moral, ethical universe, not this nonsense where people who don't know you are telling you what to put in your temple, the temple of your body. That is a gift from God. They don't have that right. And it's not that the world is perfect. The world is imperfect. It's not that sometimes people will end up regretting the decision that they made. And we've seen a lot of that during the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, how many people put that poison in their bodies with these mRNA COVID-19 vaccines and wish they could turn back the hands of time and undo that, right? Well, here's what we can do in the Florida Department of Health. We actually have the ability to start that process with what government folks call rules. So the Florida Department of Health, we have some rules that we promulgated, not me, predecessors, that include a handful, maybe a half a dozen vaccines that are mandated in Florida. So those are going to be gone for sure. So those are gone, and we're going to be working with our with our amazing Governor DeSantis and our wonderful lawmakers to get rid of the rest of it. We need to end it. It's the right thing to do, and it'll be wonderful for Florida to be the first state to do it.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack there, but notice how Dr. Ladapo repeatedly invokes God and religious freedom to justify this policy. He's essentially arguing that the state cannot interfere with decisions that should be made between an individual and their God. And here's what I find fascinating and deeply hypocritical about this moment. The same state that just declared that government cannot mandate what goes into your body, citing religious freedom and divine authority, also enforces a 6-week abortion ban. The same officials proclaiming that medical decisions should be between you and God have criminalized reproductive choice based on their interpretation of religious morality. They're using religious language to argue that the state cannot regulate vaccines while simultaneously using religious justification to regulate pregnancy. Now, this isn't really about vaccines, and it's certainly not about consistent religious principles. It's about how religious language has been weaponized for political ends and how genuine faith concerns have been hijacked by partisan identity. Now, let's talk about what's really happening here. Let's start with what the data actually shows, because numbers don't have a political affiliation. Vaccine exemption rates have hit an all-time high this year. 3.6% of kindergartners are now exempt from at least one vaccine. That's up from 1.9 at the start of the pandemic. That's roughly 138,000 children across the country. But here's where it gets really concerning. In Idaho, 15% of children have non-medical exemptions. 15%. Idaho also has the lowest measles vaccination rate in the nation at just 78.5%. The correlation is crystal clear. States with the easiest exemption processes have the lowest vaccination rates. Connecticut, which eliminated religious exemptions in 2021, has a 98.2% vaccination rate. Idaho, which allows exemptions for essentially any reason, including an 18-year-old's personal objections, sits at the very bottom. As of September 2nd, we've seen 1,431 measles cases. That is a 400% increase over 2024. Let me say that again and put it on the screen. That is a 400% increase since 2024 in measles cases. This is the highest count since 1992. There have been 2 deaths confirmed already in Texas of school-aged children. The majority of the cases in close-knit communities with low vaccination coverage, exactly where you'd expect outbreaks with herd immunity breaks down. And the math is very simple. You need 95% vaccination coverage to prevent measles transmission. We're currently sitting at 92.5% nationally and falling. When Florida eliminates all the mandates, other states will absolutely follow, and we're looking at a public health catastrophe that was entirely preventable. And here's the most shocking part. Florida's Surgeon General admitted on CNN that he did absolutely no analysis of what removing these mandates would mean for public health. Now, don't take my word for it. Let's hear it directly from Dr. Ladapo when Jake Tapper pressed him on this point.
Before you made this decision to try to lift vaccine mandates for Florida, which include obviously public schools, did your department do any data analysis? Did you do any data projection of how many new cases of these diseases there will be in Florida once you remove vaccine mandates?
Absolutely. So absolutely not. And then in terms of, like analysis, well, ultimately, this is an issue very clearly of parents' rights. So do I need to analyze whether it's appropriate for parents to be able to decide what goes into their children's bodies? I don't need to do an analysis on that.
So you're trying to lift the vaccine mandate in Florida, and your department and you did not even do a projection as to how this could impact public health. So you have not prepared hospitals in the Florida counties most at risk with the best treatments for any outbreaks of measles, mumps, rubella, whooping cough, polio, and you have not looked into how many kids might now get these preventable diseases? That's what you're saying?
No, that's what you said. What I'm saying is that it's an issue of right and wrong in terms of whether parents should be able to have ultimate authority over what happens to their kids' bodies. And in terms of outbreaks, we do have outbreaks in Florida, just like every state, and we manage those. So there are no new special procedures that need to be made.
Right, but you're talking about doing something that no other state has done.
We manage them just as always.
But you're talking about doing something that no other state in the United States has done and removing the vaccine mandate for public schools. You're making a decision that no other Surgeon General in the United States has done. It goes against what's recommended by every top medical organization, including the AMA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Boston Center on Emerging Infectious Diseases. It goes against what parents in Florida want. 82% of parents in Florida schools said public schools should require vaccines for measles and polio with health and religious exemptions. It goes against what Senator Rick Scott, a Republican from Florida, wants. He thinks sticking with a religious exemption is fine. It goes against the Florida Medical Association, which in the past has backed Governor DeSantis. So all of these people are wrong, and you are right.
Again, sort of casting it in that way is not what I would do, is not how I look at it.
All right, did you catch that? The state's top health official was asked if he did any projections on how removing vaccine mandates would impact public health, and he said absolutely not. When pressed about whether he'd prepare hospitals or studied how many kids would get preventable diseases, he doubled down. I don't need to do an analysis on that, he said. This man is in charge of Florida's health policy. He eliminated protections for children without studying the consequences. That's not leadership, that's ideological recklessness. Now let's talk about what's really driving this movement because it's not theology. Study after study shows that Christian nationalism, not generic religiosity, but specifically Christian nationalism, is one of the strongest predictors of vaccine hesitancy. PRRI research demonstrates that Christian nationalism clusters among frequent church attendees and correlates heavily with conspiratorial worldviews like QAnon. But here's the crucial distinction. This isn't about religious doctrine. Most major Christian denominations, including evangelical leadership, have endorsed vaccination. The National Association of Evangelicals has created toolkits encouraging vaccination. Catholic hospitals run vaccine clinics. Orthodox Jewish communities that experience measles outbreaks actively promoted vaccination afterwards. What we're seeing is political identity using religious language as a cover. When surveys show that Republican support for routine childhood vaccines dropped from 79% to 57% between 2019 and 2023, while Democrats remain steady, that's not a theological shift, it's a partisan one. And the tell is the timing. These aren't ancient religious objections suddenly resurfacing. Vaccine hesitancy among white evangelicals spiked during COVID and has now spread to routine child vaccinations that the same communities accepted for decades. When political identity determines your medical decisions more than scientific evidence or even religious teachings, you're not following faith, you're following tribal loyalty. Okay, quick pause. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would love to have you join the community here at Atheistville. We're building a space for honest conversation about faith, about doubt, and reason. Subscribing is absolutely free, and it helps people find these discussions, and it keeps the project growing. And I want to ask you to do one more thing. Leave a comment. I read every single one, and I promise you, whether I agree with you or not, I will respectfully respond to you. Your comments don't just help shape the conversation, they also show the algorithm that this community is worth recommending. All right, let's get back into it. So let's address the elephant in the room, the breathtaking hypocrisy of the my body, my choice argument when it comes from the same people who support abortion bans. Surgeon General Ladapo's claim that vaccine mandates are immoral comes from an administration that enforces a 6-week abortion ban before many women even know they're pregnant. They're simultaneously arguing that the state cannot compel medical procedures while compelling pregnancy continuation. They're defending bodily autonomy for vaccines while denying it for reproductive choice. This isn't an accident or an oversight, it's a deliberate political strategy. Co-opting the language of choice and autonomy serves specific partisan goals while avoiding the harder conversations about public health responsibilities and community obligations. And let's be honest about what this freedom argument really means. If the state truly cannot regulate what goes into your body, then presumably all drug laws should be repealed, right? Personal use of marijuana, heroin, cocaine, it's all protected under this expansive view of bodily autonomy. Let's not even talk about prostitution. But I'm willing to bet that Florida won't be legalizing fentanyl possession anytime soon. The principle either applies consistently or it's not a principle at all. It's just convenient rhetoric deployed when politically useful. Now let's look at what happens when ideology collides with infectious disease, because viruses don't care about political registration. The current measles outbreak centered in Texas offers a preview of Florida's future. In Gaines County, Texas, nearly 18% of kindergartners had exemptions, one of the highest rates in the state. And that community has been devastated by measles. 2 children are dead, dozens hospitalized, schools disrupted, healthcare systems overwhelmed. And this is the pattern we see repeatedly. Communities with high exemption rates become breeding grounds for outbreaks that spread far beyond their borders. The 2019 New York outbreak started in under-vaccinated Orthodox communities, but ultimately affected the broader population. The 2014 to 2015 Disneyland outbreak traced back to unvaccinated visitors. Individual choice becomes community consequences when your religious freedom threatens the life of an immunocompromised child who can't be vaccinated or a newborn too young to actually receive the shots. We're no longer talking about personal liberty, we're talking about communal responsibility. And the cruel irony is that many of the communities claiming religious exemptions for vaccines simultaneously embrace collective action in other areas. They organize church potlucks, they coordinate carpools, they rally around families in crisis. They understand community interdependence until it requires a shot in the arm. And here's what's being lost in all the political noise. Actual religious leaders with actual theological training largely support vaccination. The Vatican has declared vaccinations a moral obligation. The Southern Baptist Convention passed resolutions encouraging vaccinations. Islamic scholars have issued fatwas supporting vaccination based on principles of preventing harm. When faith communities have experienced outbreak firsthand, they respond with collective action, not continued resistance. Orthodox Jewish communities in New York organized vaccination drives after the 2019 measles outbreak. Amish communities in Ohio, historically skeptical of modern medicine, increased vaccination rates after experiencing disease outbreaks. The pattern is very clear. Genuine religious reflection, especially when confronted with actual consequences, tends towards community protection rather than individual exemption. It's political movements wrapping themselves in religious language that drives continued resistance. Florida's decision isn't happening in isolation, and it's not just about one rogue surgeon general. This is Governor Ron DeSantis implementing coordinated political strategy that will spread to other Republican states. DeSantis has already announced that his administration will push through a medical freedom package in the 2026 legislative session that will eliminate vaccine mandates from state law. He's creating a Florida commission chaired by his wife, Casey DeSantis. He's openly competing with other states to be the most anti-public health. He said, "I don't think there's another state that's done as much as Florida, and we want to stay ahead of the curve." Other states are already following suit. Louisiana is considering similar legislation. Tennessee expanded exemptions for adoption and foster care. Mississippi, which historically has had some of the strictest requirements, now faces thousands of exemption requests after a federal court ruling. The Trump administration is signaling broader attacks on public health infrastructure. RFK Jr. has defended religious exemptions and sent threatening letters to state health departments. CDC officials are resigning in protest over anticipated policy changes. We're witnessing a systematic dismantling of public health protections that took decades to build. Diseases we haven't seen in generations are returning. Children are dying from preventable illnesses. And all of it is being justified through religious language that most actual religious leaders reject. This is what happens when political movement hijack religious identity for partisan ends. Faith becomes a weapon rather than a guide. Community obligations get redefined as individual preference, and children pay the price for adult ideological commitments. Look, that's my 2 cents on this whole mess. Unblessed and unfiltered as always. But before I let you go, I want to leave you with this. The Florida vaccine mandate repeal represents something much larger than a single policy change. It's a case study in how genuine religious concerns get weaponized for political ends, how freedom becomes a selective principle applied only when convenient, and how communities suffer when ideology overrides evidence. Real religious faith calls us towards community care, not away from it. Authentic concerns for freedom demands consistency, not selective application. An honest public health policy requires acknowledging trade-offs, not pretending individual choices don't have collective consequences. Now, if this episode made you think, hit the like button. If you want more conversations just like this, make sure you subscribe. And if you think someone in your life needs to hear this perspective, make sure you share it with them. And on the way out, I'm going to share a couple videos that I think you might like. So just check them out. And until next time, take care and remember, reason and compassion go a very long way.